How's it going, everybody? So I think by now most of you are aware that Twilight Princess is pretty much available to play on almost everything you own. And that's largely because of the release of Dusk, also known as Dusklight, a fan-made, unofficial native PC port of The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. This was it was released in May of 2026 by the Twilight Realm, and it's a lot of fun. Now, technically, you could already play most of Twilight Princess and Twilight Princess HD on a PC already, and that was basically being done through emulation. But there is a bit of a difference, because a native PC port allows for unlimited frame rate and much greater modding capabilities. Whereas if you were playing Twilight Princess HD, it's locked to 30 frames per second. And there aren't really that many mods available. But since there is already a Twilight Princess HD, there are a ton of texture packs that are already available, and you can actually make the PC version look and run better than Twilight Princess HD on Cemu. Effectively, potentially making this the definitive version of Twilight Princess. You do lose that second screen that you would have had on the Wii U, but the game will run and look way better. In fact, I think the only issue that I've really seen pop up in various discussions is the pop-in. But even then, since it is a PC port and it's worked on by a passionate fandom, I would not be surprised in the slightest if eventually there was a fix for the pop-in, and maybe even a second screen add-on somehow. The other added benefit is that you actually do not need that strong of a PC to run on it. Because it's a PC port, it should be able to run on stuff that's pretty weak. So for example, when you're doing emulation, you're emulating, the whole console. So you need something a little bit stronger to be able to run the Wii U on there. Now, Wii U emulation doesn't need the highest end PC, but pretty much any computer you own will be stronger than a GameCube, right? So you should be able to get Twilight Princess running regardless of how weak your system is. And to give you a bit of an idea, from my understanding, this game is already able to run at around 120 frames per second on iOS. So there is a lot of potential here. And since this was a decompiled port, they were able to get it on various systems all around, including Nintendo's own Switch. The OG Switch, that is. So basically, almost every single console that was made in the last 20 plus years, as well as almost every single PC that's even over a decade and a half old, and even phones, and even on your Xbox console if you tinker enough, all of these devices can now play one of the most popular Legend of Zelda titles, and it's actually the best version of that popular Legend of Zelda title. Now, part of the reason this port is such a big deal is because they have been able to move it over to the Nintendo Switch. And obviously the reason that makes so many headlines is because there have been tons of people for almost a decade now asking for Twilight Princess, and Windwaker for that matter, to be ported over to the Nintendo Switch. Specifically their HD counterparts from the Wii U. And if that had actually happened, though the Switch 2 would be able to run them natively, probably would have even had a frame bump when the console came out. And when you consider that these were originally GameCube games that were re-released on the Wii U, and then the Switch took everything that was on the Wii U and made it their first-party lineup for the Switch, it's actually kind of wild that they never considered putting in Twilight Princess and Wind Waker HD on the Nintendo Switch in the first place. And the funny thing is now, even when they do eventually bring Twilight Princess over to the Switch 2, it's going to objectively be one of the worst versions out there to play because of this PC port. And it could be even worse than that, because if they decide to not bring over Twilight Princess HD and instead just drop Twilight Princess on Nintendo Switch Online, you're not even getting the second best version of the game. And I think all of this is actually worth bringing up a valuable conversation. There's been a bit of a discussion, a philosophical discussion that I've seen quite a bit over this last year, and it revolves largely around what it means to be a Nintendo fan. See, because I drew a line in the sand and decided that I would not let Nintendo rip me off anymore, many people started suggesting that I needed to change my username, that I was no longer should be known as NintenDeen, and I no longer should cosplay as a fake Nintendo fan. Because I assume in the minds of many people, the idea is that if you are a fan of something, you're willing to basically open up your wallet and allow them to reach into your wallet and grab as much money as they like. And I've been very rigid about this. Even if I'm standing pretty firmly against the Nintendo Switch 2 and I don't like Nintendo's business practices, so I'm really avoiding giving them money, I still very much think I am one of the largest Nintendo fans on this platform, and you cannot convince me otherwise. Now look, I spend a lot of money on gaming, and I've spent a lot of money on gaming, Nintendo gaming even, since last year. But the difference is none of that money went to Nintendo. It went to my desktop, it went to Steam, it went to my handheld gaming PC. And because I buy things pre-owned, a lot of it didn't even make it to the corporations, it went to random users that were offloading their stuff. But the point is that my end goal still was Nintendo games. And I'm not exclusively on Nintendo games, obviously. I still play plenty of third-party titles. I actually play a lot more third-party titles now since I don't strictly own a Nintendo console. But I'd be lying to you if I said that Nintendo games still did not occupy a vast majority of my time. The difference is I got sick of the wait. I got sick of the drip feed, and I got sick of the prices. I got sick of frequently hoping that Nintendo would do something that everybody's like, oh, if they just do this, they would print money. And then Nintendo just never does it, or they wait for a very long time to do it, and then they overcharge for it. This Twilight Princess port is like the embodiment of that whole conversation. For years, people have been asking to be able to play Twilight Princess on the Switch, and Nintendo was not the first one to deliver it. And really, a big reason why so many people do want to play this game on their PC or on an alternate device is because that game was not delivered to the Switch by Nintendo. Honestly, it's a very similar idea to Super Mario Galaxy 2. The difference is Mario Galaxy 2 eventually did make it to the Switch. For so many years, people waited for that port. They wanted Galaxy 2 to be playable on a modern console, especially considering it had been 5 years since the first Galaxy game had made it to the Switch. So instead of Nintendo releasing Mario Galaxy 2 like in the following year, or at the same time they released Galaxy 1 with the 3D All-Stars collection, they instead decided to give people 5 years to play Super Mario Galaxy 2 anywhere else. Whether it's on Android, on PC. Shoot, in my case, I gave up. I just went and pulled out the Wii and played it on there. So then, of course, when Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 ends up being the big announcement on the Nintendo Switch back in September of last year, of course there's an uproar. Because most fans of Nintendo games have all been playing Super Mario Galaxy 2 on better hardware already. So now the idea that it's worth $40 as a standalone title just doesn't make any sense to them. And I mean, like, Twilight Princess is a GameCube game, right? This is GameCube. One of the largest selling points for the Nintendo Switch 2 was the fact that it would be having GameCube games on there. It has been 2 months since they dropped the last GameCube game available on Nintendo Switch Online. Remember, you're paying monthly for this subscription. So anybody who subscribed specifically because they wanted to play GameCube games has now paid for 2 months with no games. From July until now, so you're basically looking at through almost the first year of the Switch 2's life. After the console has launched, only 6 games have been added. You're averaging a game every other month at this rate. Why, as a Nintendo fan, would it make sense for me to want to play GameCube games on the Nintendo Switch 2 if that's the kind of output that I'm getting while I'm paying no less? Instead, I have all of my favorite GameCube games available on my PC and on my Legion Go, so I can play whenever I would like to. And this was actually a very big selling point that caused me to convince my brother and cousins to all buy into the handheld gaming PC scene. I got a Legion Go, my nephew got an Xbox ROG Ally, my cousin got a ROG Ally, my brother also got an ROG Ally, and then the last 2 cousins got a Steam Deck and a Legion Go S. Those are 6 handheld gaming PCs that were purchased in the last 6 months, mind you, when we all thought we were going to be buying Nintendo Switch 2s. And basically the easiest way that I was able to sell it to them was that we would be able to play online with emulators. And look, the setup wasn't the easiest, especially because I'm the most tech savvy out of the group and I'm not even that tech savvy myself. And yeah, when you're playing 4 players, you need at least like 2 of the people to plug into a wired internet connection. But at least there is a way to play the massive GameCube library that we all know and love, even if there were a few obstacles to figure it out in the beginning. And those obstacles only happened in the beginning. After that, it's been smooth sailing. And that's just with the GameCube. The same concept applies to almost every single Nintendo console from the Switch and before. And mind you, because all of us are not afraid of buying things pre-owned, between shopping open box or looking at OfferUp, nobody spent more than $400, and that was me. I wanted the Legion Go. I like the vertical size of the screen because it really makes emulation a lot better for those old games. But anyway, just having portable PCs alone that can play the entirety of the Nintendo library was already enough of a selling point, and then you add onto it all of the games you can buy on Steam and all of the different experiences you can do with a handheld gaming PC, and it's a no-brainer. As Nintendo fans, mostly playing Nintendo games, this has been our best purchase. And things like this Twilight Princess port just reinforced that decision. I was due for a replay of Twilight Princess. I haven't played it in many years. And it's funny because a while back I got really close to emulating and playing the Wii U version, and now I'm glad that I didn't, because the PC port is going to be the way to play it. The definitive Twilight Princess experience. So now, even if Nintendo eventually decides to add it onto the Nintendo Switch 2 as like some big release, because, you know, they're falling back to their whole remake and re-release and port culture, it doesn't really add value to the Nintendo Switch 2 for myself and millions of other people out there. Millions of Nintendo fans out there. At the end of the day, the most passionate of gamers, the most passionate of Nintendo fans are doing more for us who want to play Nintendo games than Nintendo is doing. And until the Switch 2 is at the end of its life and it has a larger library of games that are actually worth playing, I just don't see the appeal in it. Not when there are other options that are much better suited for Nintendo fans out there. Anyway, look, before I sign off on this one, I've been flirting with the idea of making another alt channel on YouTube for a while now, one that's more related to emulation, PC gaming, Steam stuff, even some hardware mods and hacks and all that good stuff. Basically, a lot of the stuff that I've been tinkering with over the last few years. I kind of wanted to put some of it on this main channel, but you know, the way the algorithm works, it doesn't really like that. People are here for Nintendo news, and the algorithm knows that. So I finally just decided to take the leap and make the alternate channel. After some careful consideration and putting a poll up on my channel as well, I decided that Emulation was the good name to go with here. For now, this is my placeholder logo. I don't know if I'm going to keep it at that. I kind of want something with an emu on there. This was actually one of the profiles that was potentially going to be the main one for this channel, but I ended up going with the other option. Shout out to Atlas Royale, they made both of these for me. Anyway, so over on that channel, I moved over some of the videos from my main channel that I've uploaded throughout the last year that kind of didn't really fit in with the Nintendo Talk stuff. They were related enough, just not fully. And I'm hoping to add more videos to that channel very soon. Especially since I got the Steam controller and I want to start screwing around with DS and 3DS emulation, so I probably want to make a video on that. And just based off of a lot of the comments that I've received from people that really don't know where to start when it comes to switching to PC or to get an Android emulation device, or even if they do have a PC and they don't really know how to emulate things, I'm thinking that one of the first videos that I will have up on that channel is just a very basic, very simple introduction to emulation and how to kind of dip your toes into it. It's a lot easier now than it used to be, and I think just a lot of people don't realize how simple it is to get into that kind of scene. But yeah, if that's the kind of stuff that you think you might be interested in, go ahead and check out NintenDeen. I'm guessing I'm probably going to have more content for that channel than I do for my other channels, just in the near future at least, because I've been messing around with the Steam controller a lot, and I would like to talk about some of the more interesting stuff that I've done. In any case, that's all I really have for right now. Thank you so much for listening, and I will catch you on the next one.